Cool.
I must have been mistaken because I was under the impression that you were in, the pipe major of one of the Wasatch bands
No, I
already.
wish. No, I, th- I had been in like a whole bunch of other organizations before I joined Pipe Band, and I had been in leadership in all of those.
Yeah.
And when I got out of all of those, and I decided that I just wanted to be a piper, it was kind of a new experience to not having to worry about you know wrangle up the cats, basically having to worry
Right,
about
right.
taking care of it. So slowly but surely, I would take on stuff like when I first got into Wasatch, and they would say, "Hey, who wants to learn harmonies?" Well, I'd never played harmonies before, so I jumped on it and became the harmony guy.
Yeah.
So and then so I did that for a while, and then they're like, "Hey, we were losing all." The way that it was going was we were every year the best two pipers in our band would get promoted to back then it was the grade 3, and so then we would get all the new guys because we didn't have a grade 5 back then. So
Mm,
we'd lose those people and didn't have anybody to tune the band. So they're like, well, somebody needs to learn to tune the band. So I volunteered to learn how to tune the band. Now I don't do chanters. I'm not that good yet, but I do, I tune the drones and make sure everybody's, got that stuff like that. So it's kind of just a natural progression to kind of, this is
yeah.
like my 12th year in the band. So I was like, yeah, it gets this time to kind of step up and be the pipe sergeant and try to see what that's like. Cause it is a whole other experience when you're kind of running the band from that point. So.
Yeah. Well, I could be maybe this is a bit cynical of me, but sometimes I feel and speaking as someone who has been in band leadership, so I don't think I'm not saying this in like a derogatory way of anybody who is currently in band leadership, but
Right.
often the ability to tune the pipes is the main qualifier, really. Like that's
Right.
really what it comes down to. If you can tune stuff,
It,
then heck, let's put this guy in charge because that's what
right,
we need.
or sometimes they put people in charge. It's like, well, he's the best player,
Ah,
but
yes.
but they may not be the best teacher, right?
Yeah, that does happen.
and
Yeah.
and and whether we want to admit it or not, being in pipe band leadership, I mean, not only do you have to do all the logistical stuff, but then you have to be a teacher, right? So if you're not a good teacher, that kind of is rough too. And but yeah, this is I just figured, this is the softest way to land in the band leadership and kind of get in that. So this is going to be, and it's a challenge right now too with COVID. So
Yeah.
I'm dying to get it, because there's still players since we moved down from grade 3. There's still players that I know only by email. Like I've never met in
Oh,
person.
sure. Yeah. So you know the rest of the grade 3 folks who came with you,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
haven't met
yeah,
the others. That's
yeah, and so and that's important to me because I want to make sure that I know everybody in the chorus, and the drums as well. But I mean, just make sure that I help with them whatever they need. If they need extra, because for me, I work on the bass, so when we have band practice, I have to drive to Salt Lake. So I'm usually 2 hours early. So if people need like a remedial instruction, whatever, that's going to be my plan, is to help them out and work with them on that
mm.
stuff. So.
Is that Hill Air Force or down at
Uh huh.
Camp
Yeah.
Williams?
Nope.
Oh,
Nope. I work
gotcha.
at Hill. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I've been there for almost 20 years. So
Oh, really?
it's kind of in my midway point because I live in northern Ogden. So for
Mm.
me, just driving there and then going down to, we rotate. In the summer we play in Bountiful, and then in the winter we play in Salt Lake as
Yeah.
far as practice goes. Just because we are end district. So I mean, we have pipers all the way from Logan, and I think now the farthest is down by maybe Harriman, but before we had people that were coming up all the way from Payson.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really was a district. I mean, it was almost the whole Wasatch Front for a long time.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few. I mean, the original beginning years of the band was all around Bountiful, Salt Lake. So we try to keep it more centralized for them. But yeah, it's all over.
Yeah, it is a big group. I mean, it's for anybody who's only ever played with smaller bands, the idea that you could even possibly not have met people in the organization face to face is an absolutely foreign idea. But
it's
you
it's
guys are,
almost impossibility, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But you guys are so big that you have multiple practice locations and multiple schedules basically running at all times, and so you really
Right.
could exist in a vacuum in comparison to
Almost.
other
I mean,
individuals.
there's been times when we've done concerts and stuff with back when we had all 4 bands, and it was like having our own mass band. It was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a good challenge. I remember when I first joined back in 2009, they had just promoted the grade 4 that we had into the grade 3, and then we had just started a new grade 4, and there was no grade 5 yet. And they were stressing already then, were they going to have enough players to form this new grade 4?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to take the best players and put them in grade 3, but they still had to have good players to handle the grade 4. So like that first year that we were around, we didn't even get them up on pipes. We just played practice chanter.
Mm.
So it was a trick. And now then, like last year when we hit the pinnacle, when we had 4, people were still losing their mind. Are we going to have enough drums for 4 bands?
Oh, isn't that
4
always the
bass
question,
drums.
right? Yeah, that's
And but the formations of the grade 5 when they brought grade 5 in from WUSPBA, what was that, back in 2012? That was our lifesaver, because we would get guys right off the street that weren't even playing drones yet. We'd throw them in the grade 4. So now with the grade 5, we could deal with that a little bit easier. So
And does Wasatch currently have a juvenile band as well?
we're trying to,
Yeah.
yeah. We have enough players that they want to, but right now we haven't formed it because we're kind of like debating of, well, it'd be cool to have a juvenile band, but then would it be better just to have them with the regular band and just playing either in the grade 5, or put, hey, if they can play in grade 4, put them in grade 4. Why should they be playing in just a juvenile band?
Sure.
So there's pros and cons, and I know as band leadership, we've been trying to kind of hash it out for, is it good or bad? We have enough players to do it. I don't know if it's going to be a worthwhile thing. So
Yeah.
but
it can be a trick for sure.
because then again, and now we went from having 3 back to 4 bands, and you have to manage that, and who's going to take over the leadership of that, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because a lot of people are doing double duties. Like Andrew, our pipe major, he plays in grade 2, but he's going to come down and worry about all the grade 4 stuff as a pipe major. So it gets to be trying sometimes, especially if we're at a competition and he's got to go play with the grade 2, but then come back and help tune the grade 5 or do grade 4 and do this, and it's stressful. So
well, not to mention, I know for a fact that Andrew is, well, at least in my mind, at least he's a staple at the tuning up area at the pacing games. At least he's always standing there to just tune all of his soloists as they go through. So it's like, this guy's just
sometimes
busy.
And not even that. Sometimes he'll just tune other players.
Oh yeah, I've seen him tune other players. Absolutely.
I watched him one time. I think it was up in, I don't know. It was a short-lived games, but they had one up in Logan's for like 2 years, and he was a judge, and he'd judge in grade 4, grade 5, and he would get up there, and the kid would start playing, and he'd stop him, and he would help him tune He's like, look, I just want to get your tune. He's like, I'm just going to tune you, so that's not the issue. I only just want to hear you playing, and he would tune him and then let him go, and it was just like, how many judges would do that, right? Most of them would just suffer.
Yep.
Through 3 minutes of a really badly played 2/4 march.
Yep. So of course, I think that really, honestly, this does come down to him being a good and kind person. But one could also say, like, he was kind of saving himself there too, right? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, seriously, can you imagine?
I have to do this all day, man. Let's get you tuned.
You're like, like 4 hours of. I could never do it. Like, I've had people say, "Oh, you should judge in that stuff," and I'm like, "There's no way that I want to sit through and hear, 45 people playing freaking, gosh, whatever,
Dark Isle or something.
Dark Isle badly in different variations of that."
Yeah.
I think the only thing that would be worse is maybe grade 4 Pembroke, right? Could you imagine just having to hear really bad Pembroke?
Yeah, man. So now, I mean, like, I started playing in a juvenile band, but it was a high school program band.
Sure.
And so that was different. So there was, paid staff, though of course the staff didn't get paid enough, but still, it's a different thing when you're kind of doing it on a voluntary basis. That does make it different.
Yeah, well, for us, there came a point where we got to the point we were so big, it's like we still needed to get bodies, because you still lose people regardless. There's people that quit for whether they get married or have kids or they move away, or
the borders are always porous.
You've constantly, but the problem is once you get to that point, like people don't jump ship from bands. Like Utah's pretty. It's almost like a gang, right? Once you get in,
totally.
you don't get out. It's very rare when, like, there's a lot of people that I know that are pipers that are in like California and other bigger states that they collect kilts. They just jump from season to season. Oh, these guys are going to the Worlds, well then we're going to go play with them.
I'll go with them.
And that doesn't happen here. It's almost kind of a gang thing, and I don't know if it's just because there's like an early animosity between all the bands, but it just seems like once they get in, they never leave. It's very rare. Usually, if someone quits a band, they quit piping. Or quit drumming.
That's so true,
right? Yeah. It's very rare that you see anybody jump. So for us, once we got to that point where we weren't getting any local people, then it was just like, well, we just had to start out and start teaching our own people. So instead of having a juvenile band, they started doing like clinics where they would say, hey, $100, that'll buy you your chanter and your book material, and you'll get 6 weeks of basic bagpiping. Because I think, if you look at it realistically, within the first 6 weeks, you can tell if someone's really wanting to play the pipes or not.
Yeah.
And so if they really
can tell too.
And then after that, Then after that, then we usually farm them out to players who are already kind of signed up as teachers.
Yeah.
With Andrew, he takes a good load just because he's retired. So
Hmm.
he does, I think he does 2 days a week of full pipe teaching,
Mm.
8 hours a day. So he's one of the main guys. And when you can't really ask for, but he taught me. I mean, you can't ask for a better piper to have teach you, really, honestly.
Yeah.
The guy has got, the patience of a saint when it comes to, hearing the same mess up time after time after time. So,
Yeah.
and that's where we have. So most of our new players are coming from homegrown. We're growing them right up from learning on the channel all the way up to pipes.
Yeah.
So, which is it's been great. It's taken a long time to get to that point because before, you kind of are dependent on people learning from other places, and then hoping that they want to come play with you because either we're traveling or competing or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's we've down here at Garden Valley. We also have found like most of the success in getting more bodies in there has been from having some sort of educational program to.
yeah, you have to, and I noticed that because you guys do it. What was before COVID? You guys used to do like piping in the park or something, right? Where you would do like an hour before practice or
Yeah.
something, where you would have beginners come out in like a pavilion or something. I think I saw something about that on Facebook.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing where like it ended up being nice, but in part that was just out of necessity because we didn't have any permanent practice location. So it's like, well,
Hey,
we'll just go to the park and hope nobody
That,
reserves
that's
the
that's what
pavilion.
we do. We play by the Bountiful Aquatic Center just for that point. Well, really, to be honest with you, it's used more of a recruiting tool, right? You play,
It
people
does
come
happen
out,
that way. Yeah, people
and
come
every
out.
once in a
Yeah,
while, you'd be like, "Oh, I didn't know there was bagpipes in here," and
yeah,
they show up, and you can hopefully snag them up. I mean, that's just that's the luck of the draw sometimes. So,
yeah. That absolutely does happen. Yeah, getting out there where people can see you is important
oh
for a lot of
oh yeah,
reasons.
for sure, for sure.
Not
And
just to
we and
new
we're
players, but also gigs too. Gigs come that way as well.
Right, exactly. And we're pretty lucky because by the Bountiful Aquatic Center, they have a big pavilion as well. And then normally, since we play there a lot and everybody knows that we're there, we usually do our annual kind of fundraising concert, and we can do it there. And the city of Bountiful gives us, like, I don't know if they do it for free or gives us really decent rates to be able to use um, the pavilion as our concert stuff. And
Mm.
before COVID, I think we had our last concert. We had like 500 or 600 people there.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
I didn't get to go. I
crazy.
wanted to go up there, but I didn't get to get up there. But I saw some of the video and pictures. There were so many
It
people.
was crazy. I'm
Yeah,
like, and it's so funny, right? Because we do it as a fundraiser, and we also do it as kind of a community service too.
yeah,
But like, we used to do gigs like that where we would go and rent a hall and charge $10 a ticket, and we'd have 5 people show up and make no money.
yeah.
But this concert we do for free. But then we do like raffle items, and we
Right, and
make
then you end up making the
way
money.
more money. Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy. I don't understand the human psyche when it comes to that. It's like they would rather come for free and put money into something that they think they're going to win versus just coming and paying, 10 or 15 bucks for a decent concert.
Yeah. No, that's what we found. We Garden Valley usually would do a concert around St. Patrick's Day, which got canceled last year and probably won't happen
Right,
this year either. But similarly, we would either do free admission or like $2 admission, like really cheap.
right.
All the money though came from the raffles, and the other thing we discovered was cotton candy. It's like pennies to make it, but people will spend
Oh
any
yeah,
any amount of money on a bag of cotton candy.
yeah. We would sell. I think we used to sell like Little Caesars pizza. Right, you get it for $5, and you
Oh
sell it
yeah,
for like a buck a slice, and you still make $3 profit.
yeah.
Right,
There you
so
go.
yeah, that's kind of the same for us. So
Awesome.
cool,
So
man.
so you've been playing with Wasatch for 12 years.
Uh huh.
That's what like at what point in your life did you had you been thinking about learning to play pipes before you went and found Andrew or
No. So yeah. So here's a fun. So I'll tell you kind of my origin story on
yeah,
the pipes.
give me your superhero origin story.
So yeah, it's not very heroic, but I'll say it anyway. So growing up, I wanted to be a rock star. I'm not gonna lie. So I wanted to play guitar, and that's what I did. I played guitar for about 17 years. I tried. I wanted to play rock. I went to college and took classical guitar lessons. I wanted to be just a jack of all trades. I played
And
anything classical, blues.
set the scene a little bit for me here. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to
So
college,
I
that kind
grew
of
up.
stuff?
So I grew up all over northern Utah, around Ogden. But I ended up going to school up in Morgan, of all places,
Huh.
because my parents just loved buying houses and flipping them every 2-3 years. They didn't really repair them; they just took care of them and flipped them because of the stuff. But so I grew up in Morgan, and really kind of backwards. It's very country. I say I don't
It
know.
is, yeah.
But it's beautiful up there. I love it. But I wanted to be a guitar player. So my parents were really good about that, and they helped me get guitar lessons. And I took lessons and tried to play in a few bands. And then Back in 1991, I joined the Marine Corps, and so I went and did 6 years in the Marine Corps. And during that time, I played in a bunch of bands with other Marines just for fun. We
Yeah.
never played any professional gigs. But thankfully, I was one of the few guitar players that could actually read music. So because I took jazz theory and I learned how to read music and how scales and everything works in that. So I turned 32. So I started taking lessons back in 2005. And the whole way that the origin story came is I went to a funeral of an associate that I knew, and they had a piper play, and I knew the piper, but it didn't quite click on me that it wasn't one of those things where it's like, ooh, I want to play that, because I'd seen like the Ben Lomond High School pipe bands all the time in the 24th of July parade,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and some other parades, and sometimes on TV you'd see them or whatever.
So it's not like
And
you didn't know bagpipes
I'd
existed. You knew
right,
they
but
were out
see,
there.
like so my family generations back, they're all Dutch. Like my both my parents came here in the 50s as immigrants, so there's like I had zero Scottish heritage at all, which is
Mm.
hilarious,
Yeah.
right?
By the way, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's if you were in Holland, it would be pronounced even Hoos. But when my parents came to America, they wanted to Englishize it, I guess you would say. So
Yeah.
the approximation would be even house. So that's how I go by even house. But
Even house.
yeah,
Okay.
but it because I guess way back when in our one of our relatives was a really good architect that used to build sturdy houses that
Oh,
were level,
gotcha. They were
and
nice and
so
level.
that's why so they were nice and
So there's
level.
probably
So
somebody else wandering around the world today whose last name is Crooked House, and you're
right,
like,
exactly. They're just like, go buy from him. That guy, you'll fall right out of your lean-to,
yeah.
right? Because anyway, get back. So I went to this funeral, and it was really the first time that I had seen pipes like really close up, like 3 or 4 feet away. And I don't know what it was. It was just like, oh, I mean, at 32, it kind of just went off. Like, I want to learn how to play this. And my wife was like, "You're crazy. You have zero Scottish stuff going on in your whole background. You've never listened to Scottish music for anything. Maybe Amazing Grace at this funeral. I mean, I didn't even know any Scottish stuff at all. Right?" And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know, man. There's something calls to me. So my birthday was coming up. Like I think that it probably was like in January or February, but my birthday was coming up in March, and I told my wife, I'm like, you know what? I want to learn how to play for my birthday. And so I went back to the guy that played the funeral, and he's like, look, I'd love to teach you, but I'm self-taught, and I feel like I would teach you wrong,
Hmm.
which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah.
Um,
Good self awareness on that
yeah,
guy.
right. He's like, I can get, I can do these gigs and I can do this stuff, but I don't know all the, be all end all. And I would hate to teach you wrong and have bad stuff. And then if you go play somewhere else, you're gonna be like, who taught you? And oh my God, So
Right.
I said, well, then what do I do? I don't know anybody that plays the pipes. You're the only guy, you're my only hope kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what I would suggest is just go online and look at all the pipe bands in Utah. And it's so funny because, again, not knowing anything about the culture, I never went to a Highland Games prior to 2005, never even knew anything about what's going on. So
So he's
he's,
like, look up all the pipe bands in Utah,
yeah,
and you're
he's
like,
like,
there are pipe bands in Utah?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I knew the Ben Lomond Pipers, but that was about it. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, what do I do? So I went online and I found back at the time, God, White Peaks might have been around, but obviously it was too far away.
Yeah,
So
it
it
would have been
was,
far away.
so for me, it was like Utah Pipe Band, Salt Lake Scots, and Galloway Highlanders, who unfortunately they're not around anymore. And but then there was this new band that had just formed in 2004, Wasatch and District, and of course I didn't know any of the stuff that had happened or why Wasatch was even around. But when I went on their website, they had contact stuff. Well, because Wasatch was so new, they basically had one of those, like almost a GeoCities page, right? It just had a front page, had some contact information, and Jeff Mann's email was on there.
Yeah.
So I sent an email to the 4 local bands, Salt Lake and all those guys, and nobody answered me back but Jeff Mann. And I'm like, look, and I was afraid for me. I'm like, man, I'm 32. Is it going to be too old to learn how to play the pipes? I figured the pipes is something you had to be like born into when you're like 8 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like violin. If you don't learn it by the time you start by 8, either your muscles won't work or you can't do it.
Right.
And he's like, oh no worries, we'll get you hooked up. Here's Andrew Morrill's, you know, thing. Call him, tell him that I'm sending you to him, and get some lessons set up. And so, I called Andrew and I took lessons with Andrew for about 7, 8 years, and yeah, and he's just, oh yeah, amazing, just
Yeah.
amazing. And so for me, that was like the huge thing. Like I had never heard of a Strasberg until 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So that just blew the whole idea of the idiom of Strasberg. I still can't figure it out because I've never been around it.
Whom among
Right?
us can really, right?
Never been around it because it's just like I'm used to Western music, not like country Western, but like more like classical music or even rock and blues.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I know what you mean. Yeah.
the whole idea of I don't want to call bagpipes like a folk instrument, but kind of like that folk stuff is really been a challenge for me because it's like, I wasn't raised going to Highland games and hearing bands
Yeah.
or hearing soloists or going to a burn supper. Like I didn't even know that stuff existed until, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 4 years. I mean, just saving up for pipes because I had a family at the time and a new mortgage, and so trying to get on pipes took me about 3 or 4 years. But I kept taking lessons, kept doing stuff on my channel, and then I was able to get me a set of pipes in 2008, and then that's when I just after that in 2009, that's when I joined the
Yeah.
band,
And
and
what kind of pipes did you get?
still ones I play now. McCallum's, they're AB4 McCallum's from 2008 with
Yeah.
imitation ivory and wonderful nickel engraving. And
Lovely.
and it's a lot of people in the bands, they play nails or they Hendersons or whatever. But I'm telling you, man, especially for a starting out guy, and even later on, they have been the workhorse for me. I mean, I've competed with them in solos and in pipe competitions, and I've had nothing but awesome sound, reviews on my drone sound and how well they lock in, and they're very easy to maintain. And I tell you what, you can't beat McCallum customer service. I
Yeah,
had my pipes
for
for
sure.
about 2 months, and because they went from Scotland to here, where it's really dry, my blowpipe or my blowpipe stock had cracked.
Yeah.
Nothing that I did; it just happened.
Yeah.
And I wrote to, I think his name is Kenny McLeod. I think that's the owner of McCallum Bagpipes. I said, hey man, there's because they have a 2 year, I think it's 5 year now.
Mm.
No, it doesn't matter what guarantee. And he's like, all right, send the stock to where you bought it from, and I'll send them an email, and we'll get you a brand. And within 2 weeks, they sent me a brand new blowpipe stock for free,
Oh, that's
and a
awesome.
huge box of like swag. So I've
Oh,
got like
really?
golf towels and hats and T-shirts and stuff. And it's like,
One of those
yeah, you
blue and
can't
yellow
beat it.
golf towels?
Oh yeah, that everybody has,
Yeah,
right?
I got one
Yeah.
of those.
All you have to do is send an email to Kenny and say, "Hey, I love McCallum. I love my McCallum bagpipes, even if you don't
Yeah.
even have them." And he'll send you swag. It's
Yeah.
incredible. But no, they take care of you. And I've heard other horror stories where people have snapped drone stuff or whatever, and they send them brand new ones free of charge. So,
Mm.
and the tone is really good. You can't really beat it, especially for beginners. For me, it was just an affordable um, set of pipes.
Yeah.
For all wood. Back then it was just a few years before they started doing the Delrin with the plastic pipes, right? So
And the
and
first few of those Delrin pipes did sound kind of funky. They're
sound awful, right?
yeah,
They're getting better every
they are
year,
getting
right?
better, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, and that's really the only set of pipes that I've ever owned. I mean, one of these days I do want to get a set of Andrew's pipes because him and his son they
Ah,
make.
they're so pretty, man.
Yeah, just to have. I would like to get a set of those just because they're pretty. They're very pretty and they sound really good. They're modeled off a set, which I'll have to tell you a funny story about the original ones. Now they've got a couple of different bore stuff, but
Yeah.
we Andrew and myself we have a common friend named Lorna, and she's from Scotland, and she's probably in her late 70s. She was a Highland dancer, and then she moved here to Utah when she got married to a Air Force colonel or whatever, and she always wanted to learn to play the pipes, and so she started learning the pipes from Andrew back when she was in her 70s.
Wow. Way to go.
And yeah, right. And so I guess she had an ancestral farm in kind of the mid area of Scotland that her parents sold for a lot of money. So and it's only just her and her other elderly sister that have this money, and it's just sitting there. So anytime that Lorna wants something, her sister just wires her money. So I had gotten on. I was talking to Lorna because her maiden name was Henderson, and she always wanted to get a set of Henderson pipes.
Oh, sure.
So I always cruised the Bob Dunsire want ads or the selling page,
Yeah.
and somebody on there was selling, and he said they were 1921 Hendersons.
Oh, wow.
They were ivory with silver, and he's like, I have to get rid of them because I can't play them because he was older. He's like, I can't play them anymore, and he was selling them for $5,000. And I'm like, these are $10,000 pipes. I'm like,
Yeah.
no way.
That's a piece of history right there.
Well, yeah, and they had been presented. They had the original presentation of those little silver plaques that they
Yeah, those
put
little
on like the
plaques,
bass
yeah.
drums, and it had been given to somebody from the Royal Scots Dragoons.
Really?
No, yeah, I think either the Dragoons or the
Or the
Fusiliers. The
Oh,
Fusiliers,
okay, yeah.
excuse me. So, and I was like, Lorna, I'm like, nobody's jumped on these. These are Hendersons from 1921. I was like, they're full silver and ivory. I'm like, $5,000. I'm like, buy these pipes if you can. If you, this is what you want. So she bought the pipes, and I guess they didn't have the sights for the, for the ivory, but the guy that owned them was a pilot, and somehow he was able to get them over to us
Oh, really?
from overseas. Yeah, so
Like he just, oh, well, can't send
like
it
he
over. I'll just fly it
almost
over myself.
yeah, kind of right. So he got them, and Lorna took them to Andrew to kind of refurbish them because they were really old and they looked like they needed to be a good cleaning. And I
Yeah.
guess one of the earlier guys that had owned them used to be a smoker, and there was just a bunch of like tar and stuff in the side of the bores, right?
Yeah, that kind of sticky stuff that comes
Yeah.
out.
So Andrew gave it like a thorough cleaning, and when they and then she sent them somewhere else to get refurbished, maybe the silver, I can't remember. But when they took off the silver had been hallmarked of 1921, but the pipes were actually hallmarked 1905.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like, dude, you got pre-World War One
Jeez,
Hendersons, right?
that's amazing.
Yeah, so then after she got them all cleaned up and back, she lent them to Andrew because he was at the time setting up his pipe stuff. So the bores and the dimensions of his original like first 2 or 3 years are based off those 1905 Henderson
That's
bores.
awesome.
So if you so and I think he's got some now. He's got a second set that's on a different. I don't think they're Lowry's, but he's got another set of old pipes that they put those bores on as well. So, but yeah, that's how Henderson or that's how
Moral.
Andrews got his first few sets are based off, and you can get them off those drum dimensions now too from the 1905 Hendersons. Oh, they're lovely. Oh, they're
That's
so
really
nice and
cool.
clean, and they sound so pristine ivory. Like I've never, and they cleaned up all the silver, and oh my gosh, they are the most beautiful
Yeah,
set of
I
pipes
want to
ever.
see Lorna's pipes. I want to see
Yeah,
those someday.
I'll have to see if I can talk her into let me borrow them just to show them off because
Yeah.
they sound so amazing. Really, they're the real. It's the first Hendersons that I've heard that has a really tenor drone dominant, where the bass drone is actually softer than the tenors,
Interesting.
which is a really weird when you're used because most modern pipes now are really bassy with
Very bass heavy. Yeah.
not those ones. They're
Huh.
very much no matter what reed you put in them either. It doesn't matter.
That set of pipes is like it's like a bagpiping holy relic, dude. Like Lorna should put those into a glass box, and they should travel the
No,
games, and so we can all
right?
look
Yeah,
at them and touch them and something like
no,
that.
they're just meant to be played.
Yeah,
I've
for
been
sure,
I've
for
been
sure.
trying for years. I'm like, hey, Lorna, you need to let me borrow them. Just even if
Yeah,
I can just go do some Pembroke with them at at a games one year,
yeah.
just because it would be amazing to compete with that much history, over 100-year-old pipes. But oh, they're gorgeous and they sound so amazing. Oh, they
Yeah,
sound so great. But yeah, so that's kind of that origin story of Moral Bagpipes, I guess.
that's super cool. And if anybody's listening to this and hasn't already seen them, like it's so worth getting on Instagram or something where Moral the Moral they call the company Moral Bagpipes, right? It's just that
Right.
simple.
Yep. Just that easy to find. And the thing that they really push is they try to do more of like native American woods.
Yes, that's
Like
what I love about them. They're
I
so
don't think
pretty.
I don't think they've done a set of Blackwood pipes at all. I think
Mm.
they've all been like western and southwestern different kinds of woods.
Yeah, they
And
usually have like two different tones of wood. It'll be
mhm,
like cherry with I don't know what else, but
yeah, like zircody or something like that,
yeah,
right? And yeah, that's what. And so they're all. And I wonder sometimes if it was just out of necessity to do that because remember they were cracking down on Blackwood pipes with the
that's true.
sights
That's
for a
true. Yeah,
while, and so I think they wanted, but they're just so beautiful now.
they
Like
are. Yeah, they're
if you've
so
ever seen,
pretty.
I don't know if you know Jeff Henderson or not, but he's got a set of pipes that are with the Lingham Vitae. The green, it's like a really green wood, and
Mm.
it's just oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
really they're really pretty, but I guess it's really hard to. It's like such a hard wood. It's even more dense than Blackwood.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Uh,
oh my gosh. But yeah, there's been. I mean, I think they made a set of pipes out of somebody's tree that was growing in somebody's yard. Like it had
yes.
gotten knocked down or something, and
Yeah.
they made a set of pipes out of it. So, yep, that's one of my dream sets too, is to get one of those. I mean, well,
Yeah.
of course, I want the Ferrari that Lorna's got one of these days. I want to get me some pre 19,
No kidding, man.
1905 Hendersons, but a good second best would be to get some reproductions with the same kind of bore
Yeah.
with that. So yeah, so that's anyway to get back. So that's kind of my origin stories with all of that. I just yeah, just got kind of started, and then I don't know, man, the bug bit me, and then after going to some games and competing some solos, and now I've played all over the world. We were lucky in 2011. The Wasatch got to go to the World Bagpipe Championships in
Yeah, I remember that.
Glasgow, and
I
that
wasn't
was
jealous.
oh, dude, it was the we did as well as we could,
Yeah,
and obviously everybody wants to win, but man, just going there and
just the
being able to
experience, right?
play, we and travel, and then just being at the Worlds, and I don't know how we got hooked up, but we were like the seventh band to march into the circle, or not the circle, but the actual where they do the awards presentation,
Right, right.
and so they parked us right behind Field Marshal when
No,
they
that's so
won
cool.
when they won the
Oh
champ when
man.
they won the championships in 2011, and yeah, it takes forever to get all the bands. I
Yeah,
mean, there's like 140 bands that they march in, and but just to be behind Field Marshal when they went insane.
yeah,
And I thought they were going to jump through their drums because they had all set their drums down, and we were standing behind their drummers,
yeah,
and they lost it, and it
yeah.
was
Just jumping in the air.
just jumping and going
Yeah,
crazy, and you
that
just
scene
don't.
just always makes me nervous for the instruments. Just like you said, I'm like,
Right,
oh, they've got their
right.
pipes in one
Oh,
hand as
I
they're
figure
jumping
they
through
probably
those.
don't even care if they because it's one of the last things of the year, right? So if they go through a head or something, they could
Yeah,
probably replace it because
yeah,
they just won the world, so who cares, kind of stuff.
right.
But you still do have to march off.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was that was we hope to go back again, but it's such an expense. Even
Yeah, it's so
we took two
expensive.
bands, and I think they spent over even though we paid for a good chunk of it ourselves, they still had to get sponsors and stuff, and I think it still came over to like $150,000 or something. It's some
Yeah,
crazy. Like I don't see how bands, unless you have sponsorship, do it year after year after year because it's
yeah.
just so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like Scottish Power, of course, is a great band anyway. But I often think like, well, shoot, if any band, if any band could get that kind of sponsorship, we might start traveling around too.
Right? How would it be? How would it be to have that kind of money? Right? I
Yeah,
mean, it would be awesome, but getting to go was great. I mean,
yeah,
and yeah, of course, we wish we'd have done better, but just the whole experience of being at the Worlds and which it's so funny because I don't know. In my head, I thought the World was kind of like this upper level thing, like it's gonna be it's because they never show you that they have a whole section of people selling crap just like any Highland games. They don't ever show
mm.
you that on the feed. So like you're walking around and there's people hawking stuff, and you're like, oh, this is just like back home
Oh,
because they're
that
not.
is interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
because they're
I was
not
honestly under the impression that it was like pure competition, like no
right.
vendors.
Oh no, they
Maybe
have a
food
whole.
vendors, but
They
nothing
have
else.
food vendors, but they have people. Now they're not selling like the $25 kilts like our Highland games have,
Right? There's some things
but
you can't
but
quite get
there's
away with.
yeah, but there's people selling stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, because to me the Highland games have always been like the Scottish swap meet kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
but and there what but the food was way better. I got to say that the food of the Worlds was way better.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, it's way better. You actually
What'd
yeah.
you get while you were over there? Did you get some?
So I got a hamburger made with it was made with like actual Highland meat that had been grown somewhere like in the Highlands. I mean, they could have been lying. Who cares?
Sure.
But the best part was they had a thing they were selling. They were calling them pommes frites because it's Belgian style French fries. But what they do is they usually drown them in some kind of gravy, either like a brown gravy
You
or a
have me.
curry.
Yes.
And so I got a big thing, and comes in a paper cone, and they put a whole bunch of these Belgian fries in there. And I got mine with spicy green curry, and it was the absolute best snack of the worlds I've ever eaten. It was
Yeah.
amazing. But I guess that's a thing. And the one thing they don't tell you about the worlds is just it always rains, and the worlds is like just a giant grass pond.
Oh,
So
great.
like yeah, so you'll see people. Well, they'll take off their gillies and they buy these rubber rain boots that are painted to look like gillies with hose,
Oh,
and they
really?
wear those around so they don't get all gooey until it's time to compete. But
Huh.
oh, it's a swamp. It's
Oh
a huge
man.
swamp, but a cool, awesome swamp.
Hey, and how did your pipes play while you were over there? Did your
Really
pipes like
way
love it?
better, way better.
Yeah.
And the only thing for us, so there's a little trick that I don't know. Obviously, when we play here, we're tuned a lot lower,
Sure.
but in the worlds, just to get kind of where they hear you, they have to tune higher. So we ended up having to, we practiced every day, and then Ross Morrill, who was at the time the pipe major of the grade three, but kind of like take overall tone master of the bands. We had to just constantly tweak our channers to get them to the point where they wouldn't like crack, but they were pretty high, way higher than we've ever played before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a lot of massaging the reeds and putting rubber bands on your reeds, which I
Mm.
had never played before, and a lot easier to play because you're down at sea level just about. So
Yeah.
we practiced right out. It was amazing. We stayed at Strathclyde University, and right across the street is Glasgow Cathedral, which is beautiful. And so just being able to play in a circle and then look over and you can see the cathedral was just awesome. Just
Mm.
one of the best places to practice ever.
Oh, I
And
bet.
there was like 7 or 8 bands that were staying at Strathclyde, And so you could open up your window and you look out and you see, Boggle of Bathgate were playing there.
Really?
And you're just like, and these huge crowds,
Yeah.
and the Lord Todd Bar is right there. So we got to see the competition there
Oh
for the
yeah, did you
Lord
get
Todd.
to while you were over there? Did you get to do some of that cool, like genuine
Yes.
old world pub kind of visits and stuff?
Yeah. So when we were there, so they talk about piping live. It's a whole week leading up to the
Yeah.
Worlds, right? So there's constantly, like, you go on to St. George's Square, which is just in the center of Glasgow, and they have tons of bands from all over the world that are given like 45 minutes to do a show of whatever they want. The Piping Center, they do individual like lunch recitals and shows. And then when we were there, they had this. I don't know if they still have it because this is again just 10 years ago, but they had a just before the Lord Todd Bar recital, they had a set called the Silver Cap, I believe, and uh, and basically what it was they invited all these top name pipers to come play, and they had to play a set that was a 2/4 march. Basically, it was an MSR slow air hornpipe jig, but one of the tunes had to be a tune that had never been published before. It had to have been just written
Oh
or
really?
never
That's
or never.
exciting.
Well, because what the idea was that they would submit those tunes, and then what the tunes that hadn't been published would go into a book, and eventually they would get enough tunes in this book that they would sell it as a silver cap collection.
Oh, I see.
And I don't think they ever finished that because
Oh really?
I haven't heard of the silver cap going on since. I could totally be wrong, but I haven't.
Huh.
But it was cool. So you were guaranteed that in all these sets of this MSR slow air hornpipe jig, that one of the tunes was something you'd never heard before
Yeah,
or
that
had
does
ever
sound
been
really
printed.
exciting. That would be awesome.
And a lot of the top players were there, and it was just amazing. And of course, cheap, $4 to get in to watch, an
Wow.
hour and a half of like the top players just
Yeah,
playing, and it was all blind judged, which I think is so cool.
that's a great idea.
They wouldn't say who comes on. The judges would sit behind a kind of a thing, and they would actually just judge purely on the sound, and
Mm.
it was awesome. And then of course the next, I want to say it was like 2 nights later, we got to Lord Todd, which was, they gave them basically 20 minutes and they could play whatever they wanted. I think they had to play at least the ground of a Pembroke, and they had to do at least an MSR, and then everything else was kitchen piping. And, Andrew Bonar and Stuart Little was there, and Gordon Walker. I mean, just all these top guys. And it was just, we got like second row, and we couldn't stop keeping our mouths just like, oh my God, this is the best I've ever heard in my
Yeah,
life.
what a party, man! That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it was amazing. If you can find a way to go there, whether you do it with your band or go there by yourself, you gotta go during the
And it
Worlds.
sounds like moral of the story is get there a week before the world so you can take all this stuff
Yeah,
in.
you have to do Piping Live. Piping Live, and it's gotten even bigger since we were there. Like
Yeah.
I watch it all the time and see the stuff, and now you got all these new up and comers, like Connor Sinclair and these other guys, and they're just killing it too.
And
And it's just
I hear Rab talking about drumming for drinks. Does that happen at the same time, or is that at a different time of
it's
year?
it's the same time.
Yeah, I was
I
thinking.
want to say it's the same time because when we were there, I saw stuff up for it because Jim at the time Jim Kilpatrick was he had just started either making sticks or doing stuff, and he was there selling stuff. And I want
Mhm.
to say that it was around that same time, but don't quote me on that. I want to say I saw stuff about it, but I could
Yeah,
be wrong. Oh,
gotcha.
and another thing, if you go to those cool like recitals like that, Silver Cap and the Lord Todd, usually it's like $5 to get in, and they put your name into a drawing, and they have like piping related gear that they give away.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah, like
jamborees and that kind of stuff,
no,
like
like
on piping.
chanters and
Oh,
books and
really?
stuff.
Dang.
Some older lady. It was funny when we were Lord Todd. Lord Todd. They had given out the the stubs for everybody to get their tickets or whatever. And she had to be in her 80s, and she won like a McCallum wood chanter, like a
Really?
$275
That's so
chanter.
cool.
And everybody's like, and she looked at it, she's like, what am I going to do with this? And the best part was, there was an older lady that won that, and then another older lady had won like I want to say that's Shots and Dyke had put out a 100-year anniversary song in a tune book.
Hmm.
And he handed it to the older lady and said, "Okay, you need to have these tunes learned in a week, love." And everybody in the whole place just started laughing.
Yeah.
But but that's really cool. Like I actually won something the Silver Cap. I won like the year before they put out a CD, so I won that
You
CD
got
from
the
the year before. So yeah, they don't do that here, right? You go to a thing and you're just kind of like, okay.
yeah.
Well, of course we don't get awesome soloists that come and play in Utah very
That's
often.
what
So
we need to start the next. We'll call it Desert Storm instead of Winter Storm, and
well, I
we'll
would
get something
love
going over
that.
here.
I thought when they was you were probably piping back when Vegas was going to do their big to do that kind of got sunk at the last minute where they were going to do like they were trying to get the top three bands in every um, in every grade to come and compete and kind of do like a competition style like the Worlds,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it all got shot down because of somebody took some money away from them and they couldn't hold it anymore. But yeah, if they would have done something like that, I mean, every once in a while you get to see some cool stuff at um, like Winter Storm or something like that, but not in Utah so much.
Yeah.
We have to be the players to do
Yeah,
that, right?
well, and then, honestly though, that's also good. I really thoroughly enjoyed the Wasatch District COVID concert, that you did
Yeah,
a
and
little while ago.
that turned out so
It
good.
turned out great, man.
We got really lucky. We lucked out with having some people in the band that were already tech savvy enough, and then having the contacts to get the people that did the actual recording. And I was crapping myself because I was one of the MCs and I had never done that before in my life. So I was like, well, this should be fun.
Yeah.
And but it
You
was
nailed it, man. You did
well,
great.
it was all right. I did okay. I'll do better the next time now that I know what to expect.
I mean, the
But
piping was okay, but it was really the emceeing that sold
no, that's terrible. Totally jumped the gun on a couple of things, but thankfully everybody rolled with it. But going back and listening to the recording, it's like it's about as good as you're going to get for
Yeah.
YouTube quality and
That's
stuff.
such a good
And
recording.
and the band was just they were spot on.
Yeah.
They sounded great.
Playing the
So
backbone. Yeah,
yep. So
if anybody's listening to this who doesn't have a clear picture of who you are in their mind yet, they could go and watch that video. Or anytime they see you anywhere, you're easily identifiable by your unique mutton chops.
yeah, you can find me with my gray pork chops. But yeah, if you go on just go onto YouTube and type in Wasatch and District, their channel, our channel that is,
Yeah.
it should be one of the top ones. You can go on there and watch, and I think it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And we try to run. It's not. I mean, they play some of the standards, but most of it is the grade 2 competition stuff and other tunes. And we've always tried to make the show so it's not just all MSR and medleys. There's always something in there, and that's been kind of our trademark from the beginning. So
Yeah.
I mean, even we've got a CD that's probably, I want to say it's almost 10 years old as well, that we turned out, and it's the same thing. We try to do some other instruments and some other styles and stuff. So
Yeah. Have you ever messed with playing guitar with pipes?
no, to be honest with you, so I'm one of those guys that once I pick an instrument, that's kind of it. So I literally haven't picked up my guitar in 10 years.
So you've
So
got a laser focus.
I, it get yeah. The music is, for only having 9 notes, it really devotes a lot of your time, right?
It's true.
Because for me, it's like when we dissolved our grade 3 this summer, and then I jumped into the role in grade 4. I had to learn 2 new sets and all their concert stuff in about a month and a half. So it was like that. Yeah, there was no time. Like I haven't composed anything for a while either, which is killing me because it's what I usually do. I usually sit down and try to crank 1 or 2 tunes out a week or every couple of weeks, and not being able to do that because I've been so trying to make sure that I have this music on, because I got to be able to teach it to somebody else now.
Yeah, you got to know it really well if you're going to be able to teach other people.
Yeah, so it's like I need to make sure that I'm practicing that as much as possible. But yeah, so it's one of those things where you just can't serve 2 masters. I always am in awe of people that can play like the tin whistle. A lot of people that do like the Uilleann pipes or the tin whistle or stuff like that. Because for me, it's like I tried it. I picked up a penny whistle. I'm like, I'm gonna try this and do penny whistle in it, and yeah, you can't. It's for me, I can't. So it's just better.
It
just
wrong with it.
No, for sure. And it's just better for me to stay on pipes because it's such a challenging instrument anyway.
Yeah.
And for me now, as I get older, I've become super cognizant of tone and how I'm playing, and then I do a lot of solo gigs anyway, which that really helps with. Like I get really bad stage fright, so the more that I can get out in front and play to people, the more it kind of eases that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's people that are just like, they got ice in their veins. They can play in front of everybody and have no problems. And for me, it's always been a challenge that I've got to, I worry. And now as I play more, I want to make sure that my tone is super steady and I'm playing everything. Because, all it takes is one guy to film you on YouTube, and then you end up on Channel Rant as the fail of the week, right?
That's right.
And I've had those days. Believe me,
you can do is volunteer yourself as fail of the week. So
yeah, well, I had that
it.
happen one time. Oh my gosh! So probably about 6 or 7 years ago at Comic-Con here, I got contacted to play at Comic-Con for, I want to say he was the 4th Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. He's Scottish. He's Sylvester McCoy, I think is his name. And I guess at Comic-Con, the people that show up, they have these little riders, and they usually put in something impossible that, you know, like, hey, I want to have like all red M&Ms. Oh, and I want a
Right,
pony
yeah.
in my dressing room or something
Yeah.
like that, right? Well, Sylvester said he wanted to have a piper, you know, as kind of a joke thing. So I got contacted to come out there, and I didn't get paid for it. It was just basically free admission, but I got to meet, you know, I am not a Whovian at all. So I felt bad because I'm like, who is this guy?
Right, right.
But the thing that freaked me out was they had me play in front of about 5,000 people. Like
Yeah.
I'm walking through, and of course I picked a tune that I played Jimmy Finlander, and I'm like, I know this tune. I've been playing it for 10 years, and I didn't do my best performance because I was freaking out. There's 5,000 people. 5,000 people freaking videotape me and put me on
Yeah, of
YouTube, and I got
course.
skewered. You know, and I'm not like a new guy. I've been playing
Yeah.
in front of people for a long time, but I've never played in front of that many people.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't perfect, but you know how it is, pipers. They just love ripping you a new one if it's
That's
not
for sure,
perfect.
man.
I mean, it wasn't as bad as like some videos I've seen, but it was like, yeah, I mean, I rushed a little bit because I'm 5,000 people. You're
Yeah,
nervous, right?
yeah.
And oh yeah, so I learned. I'm like, okay, from now on, tone and playing it's got to be. I got to be locked on because man, I'm
Yeah.
not going through that skewering. I mean, they tore me apart, man. From
I'm
from
glad you
how
at least
my
stuck with it and didn't just like throw your
oh
pipes
no
in
no
the
no
fire, you
no
know.
oh
Just like,
no,
never mind.
I had too much invested in it, but it was just like it's one of those things. You're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. It gives you just a little bit of sympathy for folks like the Unipiper and the Sandpiper and stuff,
I
right? It's like
mean, you know what?
maybe they're just having fun.
It's a niche. I mean, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an attention whore anyway, so I get it that you want to, you know, you want to be out and about and have people take your
Yep,
pictures and
yep,
stuff.
yep.
But man, you know, it's got to be more than the look. You got to sound right, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I know I've been on there. I've been the fail of the week before. I know what it's like, so I own that. But
yeah,
I've also been a couple times one of the week, so I'm happy about that too.
yeah.
So
Yeah, well, so the I mean, maybe it's important. Maybe all of us need to have some version of the fail of the week experience to keep us humble and help us also to remember like there is an infinite depth here. You know, like you
it's
think once you learn the tune you got it, but no, there's the strathspey feel,
no,
there's the tone,
no.
there's so much that you could just
Exactly.
you
You
never
know, and
master it.
I take it from like when I used to play my guitar like in bands and stuff. When you're in a band, you can kind of mess up and nobody really catches it. But when you're solo piping, there is no way to get away from that.
Yeah, it's the
It's
equivalent of
all
like
on you.
it's like musical performance in the nude, essentially. Like there's
Well,
nothing
it's
being
it's
hidden.
it's like being every. I liken it to like when you go and play and you pipe. It's kind of like being at the 18th hole of the Masters and you have to putt from 10, 15 yards away, and if you don't do it perfect, you lose the Masters, right? And
Yeah,
that's
there's no shrub to hide
it's
behind.
no, it's
Everybody
and
sees everything you do.
it's very mental, and no matter how much time you put into it, you know, we have so many other factors, you know, wind and humidity and temperature. That makes it sound like crap. And then you're just having a bad day or something throws you off. You see Eagle while you're playing Amazing Grace. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
that's beautiful. And then
yeah,
you forget a doubling. I mean, that's why it's so hard to be consistent, you know, and bands especially because people get lost. I mean, you know, you get in a band and you're playing and grooving, and all of a sudden everything just sounds great, and you mess up because it sounds so amazing
right. You start
that you
grooving
get
too much with it, you forget
you
what you're
get
doing.
lost in the moment, right?
Yeah,
So, and that's why I love this instrument because it's just so challenging that way.
yeah,
Because with a guitar, you can play and play and play and play, and it doesn't matter if you screw up a note here or there. It's not as bad. But man, you freaking screw up a Strasbourg and you go crazy. Yeah, everybody in the whole world knows. So,
yeah. Those honkers are pretty
and
scary.
we are super judgmental folks. I don't care
Yeah,
what they say. We will tear anybody. I don't care if it's like I think the only people that get a break are those little kids that don't even really play. They're just like with their little toy set of pipes. I'm
oh
like, oh,
yeah,
they're
they're
so
nothing
cute.
but
They're doing great.
adorable.
But then anybody else, like if you're like 8 years old and you're playing in a 2/4 and you screw up, everybody will just roast you,
Oh
right?
yeah, man. You don't even have to play it. You know, I didn't mind at all. I still laugh about it. It's totally fine. I'm totally cool with it. But not that long ago, in fact, you were there with Wasatch for a Fourth of July parade, and I like to dress up for the
Oh, that's
big
right. Yeah, I
parades.
remember you. Yeah.
So I put a bunch of flags on and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and wear like I get all decked out. I do the same thing for St. Patrick's Day too. You know, I have a big
Sure.
Aaron Go Bra
Oh yeah,
flag on
yeah.
my drones, and I chalk up my beard orange and green and stuff.
Oh,
But
that's right. I remember. Did someone roasted you? Didn't they? Didn't like
yeah,
that get set
man.
up?
Cause I thought it would be funny, right? I'm like, all right, I'm all America'd up here, you know, like all
No,
my
it was.
flags and stuff. So I
That's
went to
tight. I remember that.
McDonald's and I got a hamburger, and I was like, someone take a picture of me, like I'm the
You're
quintessential
you're Captain
American.
America. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, Rab found it on Twitter, and I don't blame him. I messaged him. I was like, dude, I don't mind. Just leave it there. It's totally fine. But like, as soon as he put that picture up, man, everything was just like
Oh yeah.
disrespect. He's a monster. He doesn't know how to hold a set of pipes, and like
Oh,
just
dude.
on and on. I'm like, guys, come
Okay.
on.
So to go back to that, right? So, when I played for Sylvester McCoy back at Comic Con, um, my I have a full military #1 kilt with a big fur on it, everything,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to wear diced hose. And my diced hose, I must have worn it like at a funeral recently, so I didn't get a chance to get them washed or whatever. So I just threw on a pair of plain colored hose, and I'm like, no one's gonna care,
Yeah. Oh, that's
dude.
what you thought.
Yeah, and I looked fine, but man, I got to there, and that was like #2 after my playing was, oh my god, I angered the Scottish gods or whatever
Right.
because I
Yeah.
wore plain hose instead of diced hose, and I'm like, look, this was like literally like a 2 hour before the gig thing happened, and I had to grab all my stuff, and thankfully, I looked okay. But
Yeah. At
yeah,
least it wasn't white tube socks, right?
no, they savaged me, dude. Like you really some pretty tough skin to go.
Yeah, we're kind of a working community, selective in some ways.
No, we're cannibalistic. Like we'll
Yeah.
just eat and tear each other, which is so not. It's, that's why it's so good when you go on places and people are like lifting you up or
Yeah.
helping people, because it's very rare, right? They don't
Yeah.
do that. And like even like for me, like a lot of times when I go and compose music, a lot of times I'll write them for people that would never probably get a tune named after them, right?
Oh, and
Just
I'm
because
one
I
of
think
them.
that's right, yeah, because you're the president of my fan club. But
That's right.
you know, but that's the thing, right? Because it's like it all started with Kevin Conquest. When I started, I made like and then for tunes and Conquest to come to Salt Lake Games, and he was he was doing the drum major thing, and they had been talking about something like, man, wouldn't it be funny if somebody had written a tune like Drummy's Farewell to Cracker Barrel? So I wrote him a tune called Kevin Conquest Farewell to Cracker Barrel, and he just
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. So that was kind of like, what, that's what needs to happen. People need to get, because you get a lot of times that people are writing these tunes and it's these really highfalutin battles of this, and this guy that's the Victoria Cross this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what, I'm just going to write tunes for people that would never get a tune written for them, because I would like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You know what I
and
mean?
It means so much to people, and I can say that from personal experience.
Yeah.
James Moyer Esquire might actually get recorded on small pipes and inserted into the episode right
I would-
here and now.
I would love it. I'd love it so much. But no, and that's the thing. So now when I write my tunes, it's like I write them for my friends,
Yeah.
and like Ozzy Osbourne from Cameron, I wrote her band a tune because I thought, you know what, they're a grade 4 band just like my band. They deserve to have a 6/8. They play it in competition. How cool is that?
That is super cool. Yeah.
When I wrote Rab's tune, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it would actually get ever played by anyone ever.
Right.
But I'm like,
It's become a thing now.
yeah, well, it's going to get changed. Lincoln Hilton's going to get his tune put on there now. So mine had a good run. Mine had about a 1.5 year run.
If
so
it's ever going to get replaced by anybody, at
Lincoln,
least
right?
it's
Lincoln Hilton,
right? Like,
right?
that's
Yeah,
okay.
the Mozart of our age when it comes
Right.
to writing stuff.
Oh,
I know.
I love him and hate him so much.
Oh no, yeah, he's like, you feel like Salieri, right? You want to poison him because you're just
Exactly.
like,
That's exactly.
you're
It's
like,
could you at least, if you're going to be so brilliant musically, could you at least be a little less handsome? Why do you have to be
right,
so
with
perfect in
a
every way?
smoking hot wife? You're just like,
Yeah,
oh my
man.
gosh, your life is perfect. No, he drives me crazy. No, I love Lincoln Hilton. I'll never
I
be
do
able to
too,
play.
absolutely.
I look at my niche as, he writes music for the god tier pipers, and I write music
Yeah.
for everybody else.
You are the people's.
I'm
composer.
yeah, exactly, because it's just like, I feel good enough that I can get stuff out now, and people are recognizing that it's pretty musical. But I'm never gonna write like Lincoln Hilton. Like, he is absolutely a savant when it comes to pipe music and harmonies.
Yeah,
it's
he's
just
amazing.
ridiculous. And so, yeah, he's one of my inspirations, but I'll never be able to compose like that. I mean, never in a million years, because he's just so good at it.
Yeah.
But so if I'm going to get taken over by anybody, that's fine, and it's awesome, because even Rab, he wrote me, and he's just like, look, we're gonna replace your tune with the one that Lincoln wrote for the 200th episode, and I'm like, well, I hope you're not thinking that I'm upset because I'm not. I mean, I had a good run. I didn't think it'd ever become the bumper music for
Yeah.
the and so I'm like, oh, I am absolutely thrilled, and it deserves to be up there, and he's done a lot for me. I mean, he's gotten my name out a ton of places, and I've gotten a lot more contacts and stuff, which is what I love to do, network and stuff. Because my whole composition process is I usually write my tunes, and then before I put them out, I usually send them out to people to kind of critique them, because I
Gotcha.
need that feedback, because there's a lot of times it's so hard, again, with only 9 notes. I always feel like, man, did I copy that from a tune that we're playing in the band? Did I accidentally
Right.
steal that
Yeah.
phrase? So
Yeah.
trying to become original is really hard when you've only got so many combinations of how you can play something, right? So I usually send that out, and I get good critiques, and believe it or not, the same people that will thrash you for wearing, solid color hose on your military kill, if you send them a tone that you've written and said, look, I don't care, rip me apart, I just need honest feedback. Because sometimes you get an echo chamber where you send stuff out and everybody's like, oh, that's amazing,
Yeah,
that's
that's great. I
amazing.
love it.
And
Yeah.
then, but it's really not. So, and I'll do that. I'll send it out to people, and I've had people like Jim McGilvery send me stuff back with just really nice, good positive comments, and some are just like, no, you stole that from this. You probably didn't realize it, but you
Mm,
might want to change this. But the nice thing about pipe band or pipe music in general is you're allowed to kind of copy some things as like an homage, and even like on 2/4 marches, because there's only so many ways you can end a phrase. You're kind of given like, okay, you can end it the same way as Highland Wedding because there's other 70,000 tunes that
right.
have that same measure that ends that
Exactly.
same
Yeah.
way, right? So you're given a little bit of leeway. So it's kind of, you kind of skirt that line of plagiarism and homage, right?
Right. Yep.
But for me, I try to do like, now my big thing is to try to make even bigger jumps where I'm not even trying to pick those things, and that's getting harder. So like now I'm trying to end it differently, or I use different intervals, or I try to. For my big thing now, if you look at a lot of the tunes that I write, not yours, because I really went hardcore 2/4 march on yours,
Oh
but like
yeah, I'm planning to compete with it.
a lot of my like hornpipes and reels and stuff, I try to add a lot of pedal point like Bach, because that's my background. I love
I was
I
just gonna
love
say you did a Bach inspired one a little while ago that
it
I
did I
loved. I
did
thought that was so great.
Yep. So that's because that's my background, right? So I try to sneak that in there. The things that you have to stay away from when you're composing now is there's definitely a type of tune that was written in the '90s that everybody did, which is a ton of like, I mean, it's like the Pumpkin Fancy and
Oh
the
sure,
stuff like that,
yeah.
where there's a lot of this high A but moving around and stuff. So for me, I'm trying to stay away from that, but still be able to
No
add the
offense to Fred Morrison because he's amazing, but a lot of
right.
his tunes do that. Of course, they do it extremely well, but
Right.
if you
So
do
you
it
had,
too, it's
you
pretty obvious
and
who's
but it
following.
gets dated, right? Because then
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, they're playing a tune from
yeah,
1995.
you can tell right where it
It's,
came from. Yeah.
but so for me, trying to get those tunes where they're timeless, right? Where my fallback is, because I was in the military, I heard lots of military music. So a lot of times that kind of creeps in inadvertently, and so I do end up writing tunes that are like my 6/8s and my 9/8s are usually very old school Scottish military style, and that's okay because I like 6/8s like that. But then my other stuff, I've tried to branch out and do modern stuff, and eventually I'm getting there. I'm probably about 15 tunes away. Then I'm going to seriously think about putting a book together. But
I was gonna
I
ask you
just,
about that. That's what I wanted to
yeah,
know.
eventually, and I have enough contacts in the piping world that I'm sure someone could point me to the way, whether I do self-publishing or do something like, Chris Armstrong. He released 2 books exclusively digitally,
Mm.
on PDF or whatever, and it saves them printing stuff and whatever. So, but I just, and what I need to do is I just need to go back through some of my older tunes, and maybe kind of prep them up, because you can tell. Like if I was to send you a tune that I wrote when I first started writing about 5 years ago compared to your tune now, it's night and day. So I might have to go back
Mm-hmm.
and clean up some of those tunes. But again, it just comes down to just kind of putting it out there, and letting people kind of critique you, and be able to take it.
Yeah, you gotta be
That's,
able to take it for sure.
oh, it's rough sometimes, man.
Yeah,
Because sometimes you think, man, this is my masterpiece, and then they're just like, that's
you
shite.
stole this.
You
Ah.
can't do that. No, that's terrible. So,
What's
eh,
and what's your process like when you're going to sit down to compose a tune? Do you usually fiddle around on your chanter first, and then start writing down stuff that sounded
so
good, or
that's
is
a,
it
that's
pen
no,
and paper
that's
first? What's
that's a
the
great question. So, give you kind of a background. So obviously, I had some music theory prior to playing the pipes, but I never really like tried to write like, because with bagpipe music, it's so much different than writing like a guitar solo or a riff in a rock band song or whatever, right?
yeah?
So for me, I wanted to do it the right way. I first started and I was just kind of screwing around, not knowing what I was doing, and I wrote a tune, and it's my first tune. I'll have to send it to you one day. It's called Sadie's Riding Crop, and there's a funny story behind that, but it's not going to be for everyday listeners, so I'm not going to tell you on this
Save
one.
that one for the Chanarant.
This will be a Chanarant, yeah, that'll be a Chanarant one. But so I wrote that tune, and it but I didn't know quite what I was doing, so I felt like I was just jamming on a practice channel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then Piper's Dojo put out this course. It's a 6 months course, and it's called the Composition Club. And it was like $300, but it was 6 months, and every month you would get a different block and it took you from basic piping all the way to composing suites and composing stuff with other instruments, and it's all video lessons, and there's lots of exercises and stuff to do. And dude, that's the best $300 I've ever spent. So I took that course, and it gives you it's basically musical theory, but just for bagpipes.
Interesting.
And so, like the first month, they just get you to do basic stuff. You learn about keys, you learn about how to dissect tunes, so you see how tunes work and chord progressions and that stuff. And then, like the second and third one, you're like the third month, you're writing like harmonies, which is awesome because I've always wanted to learn how to write harmonies. Yeah. It gives you the best theory for writing really good harmonies. And then, like I said, by about the fourth or fifth, you're writing suites. So you're writing up to like 3 or 4 pipes, and then you can learn how to write with other instruments and stuff. And if there's anybody out there that wants to learn how to compose for the bagpipe, I highly, because we can all do it. We all hear stuff in our head.
Yeah.
So it's just, and so one of the cool things, anyway, to get back to your question, one of the cool things that they teach you in this course is there's 3 or 4 ways about writing tunes. So the first one they teach you is called write a bar, or listen to a bar, write a bar, kind of steal thing. And what you do is you will take a piece of music you already know, and you will take, let's say, the first bar of Highland Wedding. Let's say you do that. And this is a great example because I did this. So you take the first bar of Highland Wedding, and then you write the second bar of what you think would be a good accompaniment to what was just written.
Oh, yeah.
So you do that. And so I actually took a tune. Took Highland Wedding and I wrote Highland Divorce, and I took a bar and wrote a bar. Yeah. And so I swapped all the stuff and I changed a little bit here. And the next thing I knew, after about the first line, I was able to write in that same style, and I did the 2/4 march. Instead of 6 parts, I did 4 parts because in the divorce, the lady got the other 2 parts. So, and which is a funny story because Zach, before he passed, he was going to play that tune as a competition, the Highland Divorce. But so that was one of the things. And then another thing that they teach you, obviously, is you just fiddle around with your chanter. You get a thing in your head, you hear something, you're humming something, and you just try to replicate it, and then you just kind of build on that one. And then another one they teach you is, since you already have all this knowledge of chord progressions and what you want to do, you just say, okay, I want to write a jig. It's going to be in A, and because you know what the chord progressions are, you don't even need your chanter, and you can just fill in like a skeleton thing, and then you just kind of work on it. So it comes in all different ways, but typically my writing style, I don't do too much of the take a bar, write a bar, and I don't do too much of the sit down with okay, I'm going to write a jig in A. It just comes from jamming in my car. I go to work about a half an hour early, and I sit in my car and I tootle away. I try to pick 1 or 2 days a week where I'm not just practicing on band tunes or my solo stuff, where I just say, okay,
keep it fresh and
just hey, but sometimes it'll come in the weirdest times.
Yeah.
I'll be at work and I'll just be humming something. And I'm like, oh crap. And then I'll have to go grab my, I have a couple of music pads in my backpack, and I'll just grab them and just start putting things down. And they come at the weirdest times sometimes, and it's just like, okay, I just got to get down. And the more you do it, the more that you end up doing it. That's why it's just been killing me, because I haven't done it for a while because I've been working so hard on my band stuff. But and that's the kind of process, right? And it's kind of funny too, because like I don't usually have the names for the tunes right when I write them. What I do is anytime I hear something funny or I hear something that would be a good name of a tune, I write it down, and I have a note keeper thing on my phone, and I write down names, and then I put stars next to the names after I've used them in tunes, so I know I can't use that again.
Yeah.
So I've probably got about 300 tune names.
Yeah.
And some of them are funny, and some of them are not funny. Some of them are like, okay, that would be really good.
Do you have any favorites that pop to mind that you've either used or haven't used that you'd be willing to share?
Oh God! Oh man, let me bring up my thing first.
Because I know you're aware of the one that CJ did that Zach played with White Peaks, and then later with Garden Valley as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's just there's stuff like I wrote a tune called Fairground Haggis. Because
That's so great. That's so
I
great.
I wrote a tune, Payson Park Swamp.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's things like that. I mean, there's some that are like they're just funny names that I know will never, like, no band would ever play it because it's either
You can't have somebody
filthy or
announce
something.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's some that are really funny that I'm like, okay, that would be really good. And
Yeah.
I try to write some for whatever. Like, I've written a tune called Unintended Harmonies,
Oh, nice.
and stuff like that. But then, again, but there's like, I really want to write one, like, you get all these famous battles of Scottish ones, but I want to write one like the Battle of Yavin 4 because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a
And
great idea.
and another joke one too. So this last was probably about 3 or 4 months ago. Dojo did a pipe majors course that I got to be
Oh
part
yeah, I
of. It
remember.
was
Oh, you got to go, huh?
yeah, I got to go into that, and it was really nice. And so there was a lot of, you get to have, like, I think it was either an hour or 45 minutes, not one on one, but your little group of 3 or 4 got to go, like Stuart Little
Yeah.
or Alan Bevan. So we got to pick their minds, and it was really funny because Stuart Little was telling the story, and I don't remember what he did, but he started talking like Yoda, dude, and I was like, oh my god! So I want to write him a tune called Pipe Major Stuart Little's Farewell to Dagobah, because he just
Yeah.
cracked me up because he was talking like Yoda, and
And look,
yeah.
look, Eric, you didn't expect like your theme song for Rab to run on the air for a while. Like wait until one of these tunes is being announced in like Bob Worrell's voice at the Worlds, man.
Right.
It's
So,
so funny.
it was really, there was really it was funny because after I wrote Rab's tune and it finally started catching fire, it took a little while. The problem for me is I can write them on the chanter. There's no way I can play them on the pipes that fast.
Oh, sure,
Like,
sure.
I end up writing tunes that are too hard for me to play, which is really kind of funny. So everybody kept harshing me, like, oh, you need to play this. You play this. You're like, no, look, man, you got to understand. I'm just barely, like, I'm a mid-level grade 3 piper at best. And this
Hmm.
tune is way harder than that. Now, I'll play it on my chanter if you want to hear it, but my pipes, that's a hell of a story. Well, then it took off. Somebody, Patrick McLaren from Texas, ended up recording it, and then it kind of caught fire. So then it went from there. And then there's a drummer. I think his name is Andrew Kerr from Boggle and Bathgate, and he wrote a drum score for it.
Yeah.
And there was hopes that maybe Boggle would play the whole hornpipe. And
Hmm.
man, I would have lost my mind just to have
Yeah.
a grade 1 band play your tune. So,
Can you
you
imagine?
know, yeah, can you? I mean, even if it was at the World, I would lose my mind. I'm like, oh my god, I
Yeah.
wrote that. And I do know some pipers that had their stuff played at the Worlds, and it's just like, that's got to be the best feeling ever.
Oh,
For
sure.
me, I just want people to play it right, and so maybe one day.
Well,
But I
you
mean,
put your book out, Eric, because even if I ne- it, and I would plan to learn the tunes, but even if I never got around to learning the tunes, I would buy a copy just to flip through it and read all the titles. Just
oh
that
yeah,
alone
oh no,
would
and
make me
that's
value it
yeah,
enough.
that's the thing. I mean, it's like, it's one of those things. It's funny when you see some of the people that are turning out books and stuff, and a lot of them will write little paragraphs about the name of every tune and stuff,
Yeah,
and a lot of times they're sentimental, and it's really cool. Like, I love some of the story. Bob Worrell's really good. I don't know if you have any of the Bob Worrell books,
I don't
but
know, but
so he uses he has a bunch of he usually gets some guest composers and put 1 or 2 tunes in there and stuff, and then but at the very end of the book it has little blurbs about all of the tunes for the most part,
yeah,
except for one. He wrote a tune called "The Homewrecker," and he did.
he didn't say a word
He
about it,
didn't
huh?
say. It's like, I'm not going to tell you what that one's about.
His silence
So
speaks
yeah,
volumes.
so that was that. That was the first. That was the one. But most of them usually do that. So I mean, I would obviously have to be obliged to do that. But sometimes you just write tunes just because they just sound funny and they'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, Zach used to do that. I'll never forget when we competed. Must have been a couple, maybe the year or two before Zach passed, and we were in Vegas, and we went to compete against him in grade 4, and he had changed the names of the whole sets, and I remember because we were getting
Oh
ready to
yeah,
play.
because that started because we were gonna play the same march. We were all
We were
gonna
going to play
play.
Battle of Waterloo,
Yeah, we were all
remember?
gonna. Yeah, and we were like, oh shoot, we have the same march.
Yep. So then he changed the name to Napoleon Crossing the Rockies, and I just
Yeah,
lost. I'm like, who in the freak wrote that tune?
yeah,
But then it's like, oh, Battle of Waterloo. So he's just trying to be funny. So that's the thing now. It's like trying to come up with clever names that aren't either offensive. I've got some offensive ones that I'd love to put out just because it would be, but you know, you want to. I don't know. I like giving it to my friends, and I
yeah,
like doing them for cool things. Like, I even wrote Josh and Andy a tune. They don't play it, but I wrote them a jig when they first started coming out and
yeah,
stuff. And it's like, and then of course you turn in the fan club president, so I had to write you a tune. But
yeah,
stuff
man. I
like,
love that. I
I've
wasn't
got
expecting
lots.
that
I
at all, but
love
I love it.
That, and it was so funny because that tune literally, I had it down in like 3 hours. Like
Yeah.
the first part of it just kind of came up, and it was just like I take a lot of times the approach when I write my tunes to like kind of like Pembroke in a way. So I'll write always the hardest part is the first part,
Yeah.
and once I get that, then it's just okay. I gotta do variations of that,
It
and
kind of
then
informs the rest, huh?
yeah, if it takes me like 3 hours to write a tune, hour and a half is just to the first part
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'll work it and work it and work it and work it until I'm happy, and then it's nothing. The other parts come really quick. So that's in a way I'm blessed. But man, it's that. I guess it's kind of like that spark when people write novels, right? It's always the first writing that first sentence is always the hardest part of getting a novel started.
Yeah.
That's what I've always heard, and that's the same way for piping. It's like
Yeah.
you just kind of got to get something to the point. And that thing that always kills me, like I carry my phone with me now because there's a lot of times where I don't have a pen and paper and I'll have a tune in my head, and so I'll have to hum it into my
Yeah. You just sing
recorder
it to yourself.
so I don't lose it because I can't tell you. I've probably lost 50 tunes that I just didn't write down immediately,
Yeah.
and they're gone forever.
Yeah.
And they would have been cool, but I just you lost them. So
I remember listening to an interview with Bela Fleck, the famous jazzy banjo player, and he was talking about one of his big tunes, "Big Country," and how he was
right,
driving one day and he had this idea, and his method at the time was to call himself and leave himself a voicemail of
oh yeah,
himself singing it. So
yep, yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, it totally makes sense, and that's kind of what I do when I mean I don't voicemail it, but I just I use my voice recorder on my phone, and I'll just
yeah,
either I'll hum it or I take my chanter with me everywhere. So I mean I've got an electronic practice chanter, I've got a regular practice chanter. So if I need to record it so I can hear it again, I'll play it on my regular practice chanter. But I try to get in as much practice as possible with my when electronic chanter has been a lifesaver. It's just
yeah,
increased my practice by 400% easily.
yeah. Which
Um,
kind are you using?
the Fagerstrom, I think is what
Yeah,
it's
no,
called.
nobody knows how to pronounce it, but I know the
Yeah, I
one you
don't.
mean.
Yeah, yeah. It's literally it's the cheapest one. I have the
Yeah,
PC version, so there's no nice drones and there's no.
right,
You
right.
can't. I'd love to get one of the new Blair ones, but I can't
Those are so
afford.
cool, man.
They sound amazing, but
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I could buy a set of moral bagpipes for the same price. So
Yeah, it's silly.
I mean, if it comes, if it gets to the point where it's down to around $300, like the Fagerstrom or whatever, then
Yeah,
I would be down to buy it. And
jump right on it.
they sound amazing. I mean, I would
Yeah,
love it. Yeah, I would love to have it. And the people that have it that play it, they sound awesome. It sounds almost like a real bagpipe,
yeah,
right? So, but for what I need it for, my little $250 PC version is just perfect because I'm able to practice or even write tunes because you don't have to
yeah.
worry about getting your reeds wet or whatever for
Right.
playing. Because there'd be times it's like 45 minutes to an hour of just trying to get the first idea written down. If I did it on my regular thing, I'd either be wore out I'd have to shake out my
Yeah,
practice
you
chanter for all
couple
the
gallons of
spit
spit by
stuff.
then. Yeah.
Yeah. So this makes it a little bit easier. So, yeah,
What
that's what
what kind of software are you using when you write the tunes? Using Celtic Pipes?
Celtic pipes
Oh yeah,
exclusively.
I also like Celtic Pipes a lot.
It honestly, I mean, I'm not really super crazy about the upgrade. I still use the version. I think it's 2.1.
Yeah,
I'm old school. I don't think I'll ever buy. I have the new one, but I use it for mostly the conversion to turn it into an MP3.
yeah,
But for the most part, I just don't use it because it changed so much that it's like I'm an old fuddy duddy. I kind of
yeah,
like having not the original, but the version 2.1 is just my favorite. It has
yeah,
everything I need on it. It's very intuitive, and uh, I'm able to write all my stuff without having too much of an issue, and it kicks it out, and it's a lifesaver, man. I mean,
yeah.
when you
It's
get in there, for me, my hardest thing is always making sure that my note values are correct, and they have a built-in checker for you, so
right. Yeah,
you can't really screw that up, and it's just after a while you get to use it, it almost becomes like using Microsoft Word, right? If
yeah.
you're good at
Totally. You get
if
so
you're
so
good at
used to it.
Word,
Yeah,
you know the code you need to do, you know where to find your stuff, and it the one thing that has always been awesome is when I send it off for critique, people will go like, "What are you using for your typesetting? Because this looks amazing, and most people can't get it to look this clean."
yeah. Like it's just ready to go.
And I'm
You can
like,
just push that out as a PDF and it's
"It
music.
looks so good," and I'm like, "Look, man, I don't know how much it is now because I haven't. I mean, I bought mine probably 6 7 years ago, and it was like
Yeah,
$60, and that's definitely the best $60 I've ever spent. I
yeah,
mean, because you can just turn out quality music in no time.
yeah,
you, and I've got friends in my band that they still write it with BWW, the
right.
bagpipe writer,
Yeah,
and they know the code, so they can make it work too.
yeah. So
To me,
they're in the zone with it. For me,
yeah.
I've tried that and it's like, nope. I'm going back to Celtic Pipes. It's much more like drag and drop.
Uh, Hang on just a second. It's on the. Sorry.
Oh, no sweat, man. And you know what?
Oh
I've been
no.
keeping you for over an hour anyway, so we
Oh
gotta
no, no.
cut
I
it
can
down
no, I
anyway.
can chat. It was just my daughter was just
Okay,
bugging me about something, but
no worries.
yeah, no,
It's
yeah,
funny that you say though that you like the older version because I have version 2.1 on my laptop and version 3 on my desktop because I'm like, okay, maybe I should get used to the new version, but I still like the old version, so I still use it most of the time.
and there's a lot more there's a lot more stuff added to the newer version. I
Yeah,
mean, it's nice, but it's just I don't know. It's just not comfortable. It's like an old shoe, right? I don't want to
yeah,
trade out the old shoe that's super comfortable for the new shoe that maybe is a better running shoe than what I'm using right now.
right. But you get used
So
to what you're used to.
yeah, and overall, I mean, I'm I don't know. It's just it's so intuitive and it's just so easier for me to use. I don't feel like I need to upgrade it. I mean, I have the free version of 3, like I said, so I can convert things to MP3. But that's really the
Yeah,
only extra. That's really the only extra thing that I need as far as composing goes.
yeah,
But I don't think you can go wrong. I know a lot of people use, the was it the Pub or whatever, the Pub writer,
yeah.
and that's fine too. I would never. I don't. Just write music. I tell everybody, write music, even if it sucks. Write music because it
Hmm.
eventually will get better. I've got a group that I run just for Wasatch on Facebook, and it's just a composer club there where I try to get people to write stuff and because I think everybody can do it. They just
Yeah,
got to kind of figure it out. We've all got kind of ideas in our heads, and people either just want to or not. And man, if I can do it, and I'm an idiot, everybody else can
yeah.
can do it, right? So
Right.
yeah, for sure.
That's really awesome. So, what does your family think of this bagpiping thing that you've now picked up and is kind of
So
all consuming?
yeah, so right. So at first, like I'll never forget, like when you first get your practice Shannon and you're playing it. My kids used to call me Squidward because you
Oh
make the
yeah,
squeaks
yeah,
and the squawks and stuff. And then when you take them, for me at the time, my kids were really young. So when I took them to their first Highland games at Thanksgiving Point, and they were just blown away. And they're like, this is super cool. And then
yeah,
watching me I competed first solos. I did solos back in 2008 before I got really involved in the band. And I competed there and I was freaking out. And they were like, that was so cool. And then like, 3 years later, when I got really good and I started competing and I started actually winning competitions, and my kids would love it. They'd go with me to after the competitions were over, they would go with me to go pick up my medals and they just, proud as punch. So,
yeah,
and then, going and see me playing concerts and stuff. And so, none of them are interested in playing the pipe. So that kind of sucks, but,
yeah, yeah,
but I mean, for the most part, it's been really a good positive, it's been a real positive thing. And then for me, like financially, just going to be able to play gigs when you need like a little extra money has been a huge help.
yeah,
Every once in a while, and it never fails. Anytime it's like, oh man, I got a car needs some new brakes. I need $300. Someone will call me up. Hey, you need a funeral or a wedding? Okay,
yeah,
I'm down. So it's the one hobby that's paid for itself.
yeah,
It took me like 3 years to get my military kit all put together, but I just used gig money to pay for it.
yeah.
So I didn't have to get from the other stuff. But the one thing that always cracks me up though is my mom who's still alive. She's 82 and she loves it. She's proud as punch, but she still doesn't understand because in Holland they call the bagpipes the doodle sack,
Yeah.
and she still can't. She gets over it now, but she always she's always like, oh, I love you in your kilt, but it was so weird at first seeing you in the kilt because I would never expected to see you in that,
Yeah.
and uh, and for me, it's a huge change because you're not used to wearing like people that are brought up around Highland games are playing, wearing kilts when they're little or
Yeah.
whatever, and then making sure you got your pleats in the back and making sure that you're dressed properly because again, you don't want to get roasted for
Right.
have
As you know very
have
well.
yeah having your stuff on wrong, and but it's to me it's been a huge blessing just over. I mean, I have gotten way more out of bagpiping than I ever did in the 17 years that I played my guitar in either rock bands or even solo stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Not nearly the enjoyment and the people that I've met. Oh my gosh,
Oh
I
yeah, the
love
community,
pipers
right?
and pipers and drummers and for the most part, other than roasting us on the internet,
Yeah.
people face to face have
Yeah,
been
as long
like
as you're face to face, usually it's
face
been
to.
pretty
Oh
good.
yeah, they're usually and they're very giving and they're willing to help you and I was blessed because that the one person that wrote me back hooked me up with Andrew because I mean he's to me he's my patron saint. I mean
Yeah.
he made me the piper that I am and just his love of everything Scottish music wise and piping and that kind of stuff. It's infectious.
Well,
you know.
I'm definitely, once this episode hits, I'm gonna send a direct link to it straight to Andrew and just tell him like, hey man, anytime you're feeling a little down, just listen to this episode. I'm
No,
pretty sure it'll make you feel good.
I know I'm not alone. There's a
Yeah.
whole course of people that I mean, if you was to do like a pedagogy of everybody that's been like taught by him, it would be not only just in Wasatch, but just in Utah in general, it
Oh
would be
yeah, all over.
huge.
Well, even
And
myself. I mean, when he's judged me in solo competitions, he's always been the guy who will, at the end, actually like talk to me, not just put down in notes and say, "Here are some suggestions. You know, here's something you could try and practice that would improve how you
exactly,
swing your 2/4 or something like
it's
that."
it's
You know?
because he cares. He cares so much for the
Yeah.
music. It's like I've literally never met anyone that has cared that much about the music that much. And it's like there's been times where you're just like, how is he, have the patience to put up with me screwing up that doubling? He's heard it like 13 weeks in a row. We
Yeah.
go over it every time, and I've screwed it up every time, and he just looks at me and goes, "Yeah, you screwed that," and always with a smile on his face, like, we'll get it, don't worry, we'll get it,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, it's like, yeah, you almost can't ask for a better teacher as far as Andrew goes, and just like I said, he just cares so much about the tradition and the music and all that stuff that it's a joy to be around. And now I get to see it from the other side because now I get to be his second in command and see how he runs the show. And again, the patience, man. It would be hard to be a pipe major of a grade 4 band
Yeah. Yeah.
because you want, it's like, oh, do you want to say that sounded like crap, or do you want to say, well, we got, no, it sounded okay, but he
Yeah.
does. I mean, he took our band from grade 4 to grade 3 because he knows how to get people to play the tune so we can get moved up. It's straight up. I mean, people I never thought in a million years could play tunes, and he got them to do it. So,
Yeah.
my hats off to him for sure.
Now, of course, that might feel a bit like big shoes to fill, where you're now pipe sergeant and going to be stepping into some leadership position here for 2021. But I'm curious, maybe this is kind of the beautiful thing that we fade out on. But I'm curious, say you mentioned that you get nervous when playing in front of people.
Hmm.
You're going to be standing in front of your pipe band at some point when
Oh
they're
yeah,
getting ready to go out to compete or to perform, and some of them will undoubtedly be nervous.
oh yeah.
What would you say to them?
It's one of those things that's like Andrew. It's just like it's so funny because Andrew's super Mormon, so he would never swear ever in his life.
Uh-huh.
But his favorite thing he loves to say before we go up to the line, and if you ever see us compete, if you watch when he does this, because he'll say, "Fetch on you, you fetching fetchers," and it makes everybody lose their mind laughing, and it really calms everybody down.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care where if we win or lose. He's like, it's out of our hands now. He's like, just go out there and play the best you can. Follow me, make me dance. His favorite thing is make me dance when the jigs come on. That
Yeah.
we're playing so good, and it's that lightheartedness, right? Because sometimes we get up there and you see people like the intensity at the Worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap, those guys just ripping people, left and right, and it's
Yeah.
like, nope, you suck, you're out. I'm cutting you at the line,
Yeah.
and it's like Andrew is like, if you're having like an absolute terrible day, he might cut you, but he's going to give you that experience because in the long run, you're going to grow from that, even if you have a bad run, right?
Yeah.
And the reality of the situation, in our band especially is, our motto is not really our motto. I guess it would be our group statement or whatever. Is we just want to make sure that we um, promulgate the music and make sure that we play it as the highest standard that we can. But it's not all about winning, right? It's about just playing really good, solid music, and yeah, you can't, having that kind of leadership and that kind of stuff to make it so it's just fun to play makes all the stress worth it, right?
Yeah.